Welcome to the Opportunity Podcast, where entrepreneurs come to learn from real buyers, sellers, and industry experts on the lesser-known growth opportunities to build their online business empires. We'll uncover tactics veteran online business entrepreneurs have used to build, buy, flip, and sell their way towards personal wealth. Sit back, grab a coffee, and get ready to uncover hidden growth secrets. The Opportunity Podcast starts now.
Welcome back to the Opportunity Podcast, your go-to resource for hidden growth opportunities throughout online business. For those familiar or new to the podcast, I'm Sarah, and thanks for joining me today. Today, we'll be talking to Amazon Ppc expert Laura McCaul. Laura started her online business journey as an FBA seller before discovering she had a knack for writing high-converting Amazon product listings. She then met her current business partners, and together they founded Sponsored Profit, an agency creating personalized Amazon Ppc strategies that help businesses attract the attention of customers in all stages of their journey. Ppc is often an expensive pain point for FBA sellers and one of the biggest barriers to entry for success. In this episode, Laura explains why Ppc is an investment, not a cost, and how Amazon advertising, when used correctly, can be a significant driver of revenue. Laura walks us through her misspend prevention method, an action plan that cuts wasted ad spend by up to 50% on average. We talk about how to start a new Ppc campaign and to scale it from scratch, and discuss some of the common mistakes that FBA sellers make when using Ppc. If you feel like your Amazon listings aren't getting the traction and attention they deserve, then you certainly don't want to miss out on this episode. I don't want to give away too much just yet, so let's dig in the interview and see what Laura has to share. Let's get started. Hey everyone, welcome back to the Opportunity Podcast. Really excited to have today's guest on as co-founder of Sponsored Profit, Laura McCaul. So Laura, how you doing today?
Hi Sarah, I'm doing great. Thank you for having me. How are you?
Good. Well, great to have you, and I'm doing well. I know you and I have talked prior to this, and we had such a fun phone call last time we spoke, so I'm really excited for this interview today. I think it's going to be a lot of fun.
Great, me too.
Now, just curious, where are you in the world right now?
So I am in Worcester in the UK. So Worcester is in the West Midlands, so I'm just southwest of Birmingham or northwest of London, depending on how familiar you are with the geography of the UK.
Brilliant. That's awesome. I mean, weirdly done a lot of UK in the past. I've not been to Birmingham yet. It's kind of like high on the list, especially after Peaky Blinders. Now I really want to go after seeing that show.
There you go.
I can't wait. I think they're doing Peaky Blinders tours and stuff now. So it's like I'm completely being a fan, and I'm going to bring a lot of tourism dollars to this town that no one expected from this show. So.
Oh, nice. You know, we did one of those escape rooms. I don't know if you've heard of those.
Yeah.
Okay. And we actually did one, funnily enough, in Birmingham, and it was a Peaky Blinder themed escape room. So we actually did it as kind of like a fun team building thing before we went out for dinner and drinks. The whole team got together and we did that. And it was very, very cool. And we had to kind of break out of these two rooms. And it was all Peaky Blinder themed. So it was a lot of fun. So you should definitely go. You should do it.
Oh my gosh, that's super high on my bucket list now. I think I did a Game of Thrones one when I was in Split in Croatia this year because I've got loads of Game of Thrones stuff. So maybe that'll be my new thing, movie and show escape rooms. That's awesome.
That's it.
You know, I've gotten the chance to know you a little bit and learn about your past. I've loved hearing a little bit of your story. You've worked from everything as a business manager, principal consultant. You also spent time studying landscape design in the States. How did you make your way into the wild world of online business?
By accident, which is probably not surprising given my journey as you've just listed it. You know, and I said a happy accident at that. I mean, I think you could probably call me a builder of sorts. I started out my corporate career in IT recruitment, helping banks and financial services companies build teams. I'd recruit talent for them. Then I fancied a complete sea change and I traveled to the US. I studied landscape design and started building beautiful outdoor spaces in Southern California. And then when I returned to the UK, I decided to make another change and build a physical products business and brand on Amazon. And I did that with a gardening brand. So using my sort of business chops from my corporate career and then combining it with the time I spent in Southern California in landscape design. So that's how I ended up online. That's how I ended up building a brand on Amazon. And then, from there I pivoted into listing creation and now Amazon Ppc. So if you join the dots, it kind of makes sense. Yeah, it's been an interesting journey, to say the least.
I love that. Yeah, I'm accidentally in the industry myself. And I feel like that's a lot of people in online business, right? You're taking your life experience and your own passions, and it's easily moldable to an online business. And it's so fantastic that you worked that into Amazon. And then obviously now you're working within Amazon. So I was curious about that because, you're talking about selling on Amazon and you moved away from that and started helping other sellers with their PPC. So I would really love to know, what about working with PPC campaigns really resonates with you? What made you make that switch?
It's an interesting question, and I think I should probably preface it with, I don't work in the weeds of the campaigns. I'm very fortunate that, my team and business partners are absolute wizards at PPC. So, PPC certainly resonates with them on a granular level. But for me, and again, sort of playing to my strengths, it's really about the fact that PPC is, probably the biggest pain point for Amazon sellers. And, unfortunately, it can also be the biggest barrier to success. And, for myself and certainly Daryl and Tim, my business partners, we're all former sellers. We all met at live events and we kind of came together, and it was less moving away from selling, but just PPC kind of became the perfect sort of business for us, because it actually started out as a side gig, sort of helping, seller friends with their PPC get better results. And then it kind of, as I said, became the perfect business for us. And again, that's just because, Daryl got PPC and he kind of thought everyone understands it at the level that he does, which they don't. And I still don't to a point, but just the sheer fact that it is such a pain point, it can be a very expensive pain point for sellers. And with the right sort of strategies in place and understanding, the key concepts, that pain point can be removed. And that's what really sort of resonates for us, because we get to see, an awful lot of great sellers with great brands, great products, just not getting the traction and the visibility they deserve. And so for us to be in a position to help them and remove that barrier, we feel very grateful to be able to do that and to have built a business that allows us to do that.
Yeah, that pain point piece is just so relevant. I know you and I talked about it a bit, prior to this call, and we'll probably get into it in the questions. As we all know, people starting out and trying to get into Amazon, I think understandably a lot of that focus is on, what's my product going to be? How am I going to launch it? And, you get really deep in the weeds on that without probably ever thinking about, the PPC aspect. And then the fact that you could sink a lot of time and money into your products. And like you said, you're just not getting seen. And then you don't know how to get seen. And then you try to get seen and then you lose a lot of money in the process. So it's great what you guys are doing and being able to, and certainly help people. It's more than just financial investment. There's like almost a life investment into it. So it's good that you can kind of be there to be an advocate in that sense. Now, granted, we'll get all into that. I think before we get there, I would love it if you could paint me a picture of the Amazon advertising environment today. So how important is PPC, and can you successfully scale your business without it?
How important is PPC? Very. Can you scale without it? No. I think for those of us that have been around a while, certainly going back, 5 or 6 years, could you launch products and sell products successfully without advertising? Yes. Can you do that today? No. Amazon has become a pay to play platform. And, in order now for brands to stand out, advertising is the only way, or certainly one of the most important ways to do that, because it's all about visibility. I think that's really key to understand. And it's a very obvious thing to see as well. For those folks that kind of work on desktops, the number of organic placements now you see in the search results, like above the fold, maybe 3 if you're lucky. All the other positions are paid ads, and then the same will go for mobile. So in order to be seen on Amazon, you need to be advertising, because there's more and more paid placements becoming available and taking up that real estate on the platform that, if you're not advertising, you're invisible. And if you're invisible, you're not selling, you don't have a business.
Yeah, I'm thankful you're putting that into perspective, because, we've talked to people in the podcast just kind of through every corner of the internet, and it feels like every corner of Amazon. I don't think anyone's really put that into perspective, this pay-to-play environment, the threat of invisibility if you're not playing the PPC game, and certainly if you're not doing it correctly. You kind of hinted to something that I wanted to ask you next. You were talking about being on the platform for the past, 5-6 years. Can you walk me through how Amazon advertising's just changed over the years?
Sure. I mean, I can certainly give you an overview, probably have a separate podcast just on the changes itself. They're that extensive. But yeah, I mean, the changes are exponential, Sarah. And with that, advertising has certainly got, equally as complex. But, in a nutshell, Amazon PPC has essentially moved from being a mostly keyword targeted advertising model to now, a whole range of advertising, formats and types where, you can now use Amazon as a client, or rather a customer acquisition channel, both on and off Amazon. So that's the introduction of things like sponsored brands and display ads. So it really has changed a lot. And, from more ways to optimize bids, more ways to target not only keywords now, but products, as in ASIN. So you can target your competitors now and have your ads, be placed on their listings. You can kind of target categories. As I said, with the new ad formats, you can kind of engage with sellers, when they're not ready to buy, but maybe when they're thinking about buying. This is the whole, top of the funnel when people are just, hey, I'm thinking about buying, a pair of running shoes. And then you kind of go down the journey to kind of explore your options as to what running shoes are available, to when you're in a pinch, you've got to get a present the next day. And it's like, I need a silicone spatula for my mom. So I'm going to hop on and I'm going to put in those exact search terms and get what I need, get it bought and get it delivered. So it's changed exponentially, based on essentially what we call the customer journey, from that, just having a little kind of browse to get some ideas for gifts to, knowing what you want and getting it in a pinch. And so there's all these different types of ways now that you can place your ads to kind of stand out and to attract the shopper, regardless of where they're in their journey in terms of whether they're ready to buy or whether they're just looking for ideas.
Surprising almost to hear it when you're talking about the customer journey through that lens. When we talk about it so much, I suppose, internally, on the marketing team, and you kind of see that throughout, let's say, content marketing. But I haven't heard many people kind of talk about the customer journey through the lens of PPC. And maybe this is me being an outsider to the industry, or I've talked to people within PPC, and sometimes it feels so scientific and structural, and you're playing, I don't know, with the algorithm in a way. And yet I think what you're saying here is there's probably a little bit more artistry to it, a little bit more of a human drive to it than probably most people give it credit for. And it sounds like if you are coming at it with that lens, odds are you're going to have much richer, much better PPC campaigns. You can tell me if I'm making that up, but that was just kind of what came to mind as you said that.
Not at all. I think what you've said is quite correct. I think probably the easiest way to put that is that, again, I think for those folks that have been around, there's been a very obvious shift in recent years on Amazon to move away from a place where you go to buy stuff and therefore also as a seller to sell stuff, to building a brand and to also providing Amazon shoppers and Amazon customers. And we always need to remember that, Sarah, that they are Amazon's customers first and foremost, but to give them a brand experience. And so because of that, we see, the likes of, let's say, the sponsored brand ads, things like A+ content. So the brand ads, for example, are those banner ads. We see it, in the top, middle and bottom of the search results, but we see things like Amazon storefronts, which is like having your own little mini e-commerce store on the Amazon platform. It's all very brand oriented. It's all about driving brand awareness. It's all about content now and not just keywords. So when I mentioned earlier this sort of move away from a very almost narrow sort of keyword driven model of advertising to, these more brand awareness, more content rich types of advertising that are more customizable as well, with custom images, with, copy and so forth. that's just really changing the whole shopping experience, which is why now, there's so much traffic that starts on Amazon for searching for shopping ideas, right? So it's not just a place to go, as I said, when you need something in a pinch. It's also a place to go for gift ideas and shopping ideas. So yes, it's become more sophisticated in that we're not just dealing with keywords now. We're dealing with a very content-rich, brand-oriented platform, which, as I said, Amazon's been moving towards for some time, and I think has, essentially elevated the whole shopping experience. And that's ultimately what Amazon is all about. It's providing the best possible shopping experience for its customers. So I hope that makes sense. I feel like I might be overcomplicating things a little bit, but essentially that's how I see it in a nutshell, at least.
No, all that was fantastic. Listening to that, it's like I've heard a lot about the shift on Amazon to develop more brands. But one thing that you said in particular that really stood out to me, it's not a perspective I've heard before, was like the shift between the place that you go in a pinch. And now it's like the preeminent place, you're going to go there. You're going to go there first because you've got your brands, you've got the best shopper experience you can think of. And I think that's such an interesting point A to point B that we're talking about here, where it's like, yes, we know that brands were like a piece of that puzzle, but the idea that the customers now think of Amazon differently than they did a few years ago, and now they're just coming there first, and that the bar has been set higher, I think is so interesting. It kind of takes me to the next question, because I'd imagine all that would be, let's say, the good of Amazon. But I would love to know, I love this kind of setup here. Tell me about the good, the bad, and the ugly of PPC. What is a full range of experiences for sellers working with it?
Oh, it's a loaded question.
I know.
Look, I'm also happy to be an advocate for Amazon advertising as well, because, I do feel it can kind of get a bad rap, because there's no doubt that for many sellers, it can feel like a giant money pit. It can feel like, I think it's safe to say there's a pretty sizable portion of sellers that have a fairly skeptical view of Amazon advertising, that it's just another way for Amazon to make money out of sellers. And look, there's no doubt that Amazon advertising has become a very important and significant revenue generator for the business. Absolutely. And look, we can't be under any illusion that, Amazon is not a profit organization, right? So for sure, it's a commercial decision. But ultimately, what it does is, it does enable brands and sellers to reach a much bigger audience of shoppers who are ready to buy. That is the key thing. So if we talk about the good, Amazon advertising is still the most profitable, effective, and powerful direct marketing channel for Amazon sellers. There's just no doubt. The average conversion rates on Amazon are higher than Google AdWords, than Facebook ads, and the benefit being the shoppers are already there. The audience is there. You don't have to, who's your target audience, and then sort of, figure out how to drive traffic to them externally. They are there on Amazon. There's certainly a place for external traffic. But at the same time, the shoppers are there and they're looking to buy products. So, that is definitely the good. So when it comes to the bad and the ugly, look, if you are targeting the wrong keywords, if you have a not very compelling product offer or a low converting product listing, if there are other things going on, if you're, struggling to stay in stock, Amazon PPC is going to be difficult for you, and it's going to be more expensive, because all these other sort of parts of your business, they all tie into how well your advertising performs. They're not sort of completely separate. So sure, we can talk about the bad and the ugly, because like I say, you can definitely waste a lot of money. So for example, according to research, about 50% of sellers misspend at least 20% of their ad budget every single month. Now that adds up. And I understand that can also leave sellers very frustrated, thinking that, this is a waste of money. I'm not making the sales that I need to make in order to stay viable or even grow the business. So for sure, you can waste money, as I said, bidding on the wrong keywords, maybe bidding on too many keywords. There's a few different holes you can have in your strategy that can cause you to waste a lot of money. I think another way to probably not get the most out of your campaigns is to set and forget your campaigns. Time and time again, we hear about more seasoned sellers who are like, I just can't understand it. We've launched X number of products in the past and, we've done really well and our PPC kind of works, but the PPC doesn't work as well as it used to, or we're trying to get into a new product category and the strategies that we used in other categories, they're not working anymore. So I think where the bad and the ugly can come in is if you don't sort of keep up with the changes on Amazon, if you don't adapt, your strategies, if you don't spend the time researching your keywords, if you don't spend the time making sure that your product listings, are compelling, that you're priced competitively, that you have reviews, all these other things will mean that, you can waste a lot of money and that can kind of really bum you out and frustrate you. But unfortunately, it can see a lot of businesses, kind of throw in the towel as well. And that's, again, comes back to what I said earlier in terms of what resonates with us with PPC. Too many businesses don't get the success they deserve, or they don't get the chance to maximize their potential on Amazon because they just don't have the right strategy, or they're just missing a few key pieces that would make the difference between them being invisible and visible.
That's such a great answer, painting me a picture across, this whole spectrum. When I listen to it, I almost think of, it feels like an ecosystem, almost more of an ecosystem than I even realized. Maybe I'm projecting here. I'm putting myself in the shoes of new sellers, for example. And let's say they're listening to this podcast and they're like, oh my gosh, PPC sounds really complex. I know I need to do it, but this is sounding really complex. And like you said, there is a potential money pit if I'm failing. So I guess putting yourself in the shoes of FBA sellers who are just starting out, what would you say are the best practices to start implementing PPC and hopefully protect themselves along the way?
Yeah, absolutely. And again, I hope, I want to encourage people to use PPC and not discourage them and scare them off. But, the simplest thing you can do for your PPC, whether you're starting out or whether you're, partway down your journey, is to focus first and foremost on your product listing. So something that we call CPR. So that's conversion, pricing, and reviews. And so, the best way to ensure you get the most out of your ad dollars is to make sure that you have a high converting product listing and that you have a compelling offer with some reviews. So for example, Amazon themselves state, don't start advertising until you have at least 15 reviews. So if there's one piece of information I can impart, it's that. And it's not even our data. That's coming straight from the horse's mouth. But it's making sure that you're priced competitively. That's even more important when you're starting out and you're competing with big sellers who have more reviews than you. One of the ways that you can kind of compete and level the playing field is on price. I'm not saying you have to lower your price and lose money hand over fist, but you have to understand that where do you fit into your category, something that we call knowing your place. So when you are starting out and you have fewer reviews, you've got to make sure that your product images are absolutely top notch. You want to make sure that your title, as well as having, relevant keywords that will get you found, garners attention. So you've got a key benefit in there at the beginning of your title. You want to make sure that, your bullet points are benefit led. So you make, your product as compelling as possible. As soon as you're able to have A+ content and sort of create more content that engages with shoppers, keeps them on your product listing and hopefully persuades them to buy. All these things are really key. So before you even kind of get too concerned about the ins and outs of PPC, start with your product listing, start with conversion, start with your pricing, start with reviews. Those are some of the most solid foundations you can build for your campaigns. And it's got nothing to do with PPC and got everything to do with your product and your product listing.
I think it's really easy for sellers to think of things in buckets or silos across their Amazon business. It's like my product and my launch strategy is maybe in one bucket, my PPC another bucket, my brand in another bucket. And it's like, no, you can't do that. They're all interrelated. If you want that PPC to be successful, like you're saying, you're going to have to focus on the basics. Otherwise, you're not going to get anywhere. So I appreciate that perspective. You can't rush towards the finish line as Fba without putting your racing shoes on first, it sounds like.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I'm just thinking out loud here because building off of everything you just said, there were some really key pieces of advice. I suppose if we were to take it to the next phase, let's say somebody's done everything you just suggested. Things are going well. They seem to be figuring out PPC along the way. What does it take to kick it up a notch and to start scaling PPC from there?
Yeah, good question. So once you've gotten traction and you want to kind of take things to the next stage, obviously there's a couple of key things to bear in mind. And this follows on from the previous point, as well as it being all about your product. Another key thing, Sarah, is inventory, right? Because staying in stock and being in stock is super important for the performance of your PPC, for how well your products rank, and so on and so forth. So now if you're kind of at the stage where you're getting traction, you're making sales, how you kind of kick it up a notch, there's a few kind of components to that. So inventory is going to be even more so important now, because, if you want to kind of dial up your advertising and your visibility based on, reasonably or well-performing campaigns, then you need to have the inventory in order to replenish the sales that you're going to be driving and that increase in sales. But I think, we've certainly seen from experience there are two key advertising formats and types that can really kick things up a notch. So if we stay first within sponsored products, that is the targeting options, being able to target both products through ASINs, which I mentioned earlier. So now you can have your ads sort of appear on your products, on your competitors' listings and so forth. That's really key. And, on average, we see about a 30% uplift in PPC sales when we start to build out those campaigns for our clients. So the product targeting in particular, category targeting also, where you can kind of target specific categories as opposed to specific products. So that's the first sort of place we kind of start to kick things up a notch. And then again, the next sort of rung on the ladder, I'm jumping a couple of steps, but these are certainly the key highlights, would be sponsored brands, sponsored brand ads. So again, they're those banner ads or, the very popular video ads that you see now. They're available in sponsored brands. You need to be brand registered to qualify for sponsored brand ads, but that's when you can now start driving clicks to your own storefront, which, as I said, is like your own e-commerce store on the Amazon platform. For example, what you can do there is, say you've got a shopper who is looking to buy a grill brush. If you can sort of drive them through a brand ad to your storefront, now you can kind of, also show them that you sell a grill light and that you sell a burger press and that you sell all these other products. So now you can start to increase the average value of the purchase, of the basket value, by now going, look at that. These guys, they also sell this. Or if you don't get that sale that day, they'll remember that. So, the next time they look for a grill accessory or a gift for, the griller in their life, they know where to go. So the product targeting in sponsored products and then, moving into sponsored brands, can be real game changers for sellers and can really take their business to the next level. However, the caveat to that, as I said, is making sure that you have sufficient inventory, to make sure you can then fulfill on the increase in sales that those can drive for your business.
Yeah, listening to everything you're saying, I might be at risk here of making you repeat again, but it does bring to mind, I think this relates to a question that I had down the road. Everything that you're saying, is that, say, different to the steps that are needed for established FBA sellers to build a 7-figure business, for example, with Amazon ads? Like, is there even a relationship between those, or would it be, let's say, a different process than what you've just outlined?
Not necessarily. I think certainly from our experience, I think the key thing is that, where we've sort of seen the biggest success is really focusing on really kind of 80-20ing everything we do. So when I say that, you'll find, regardless of the size of your business, that 80% of your sales are driven by 20% of your keywords or 20% of your ads. The 80-20 rule kind of shows up everywhere. And it's really just about doing the basics well. It still comes back to having quality products. That is the key thing, because no amount of PPC will grow a business, or at least grow a business sustainably, if you have poor quality products, if you have really low conversion, because, more people bounce off your page than they actually stay on there and buy. I think the key thing is making sure that you really leverage and maximize the available sales with every given ad type or targeting option before necessarily moving on to the next thing. It's very easy to kind of race ahead and say, right, I now need to be doing video ads, and now I need to do display ads, and now I need to do, drive off Amazon traffic. The key thing is just to make sure that, you are focusing your ad dollars on what works, the keywords and the campaigns and the products that prove themselves time and time again. And you kind of gradually, sort of dial things up. You're always optimizing. You're always increasing the budget. You're always optimizing again to make sure you keep that waste at a minimum. And you just need to keep doing that at every level. But it's kind of the same, I think, at least, regardless of the size of the business. It's just making sure that you are always trying to get the most out of your ad dollars before you then start testing new stuff. Again, coming back to the 80-20 rule, we kind of try to place 80% of the ad budget on, the stuff that works. And PPC is all about data. So we can see, which search terms are driving sales, what are our more profitable campaigns, what are our least profitable campaigns. Sometimes certain targeting options work better than others. So it's always about testing. And so that's 20% of your budget. And then you protect that 80% once you've got that data, once you can see what's working, what's driving sales, making sure that you protect your profits and protect your business by always making sure that 80% is going on the stuff that we've proven to work, and that we're constantly testing new stuff, but we're keeping that testing to a safe amount. So we're never kind of endangering the business by kind of going all out on the latest, greatest, or the newest feature, because there's always stuff kind of happening. So I don't know if that answers your question, but it's really just about doing things gradually in a very systematic way, rather than kind of racing to kind of throw the kitchen sink at all the new stuff that's coming out and potentially kind of, wasting a whole lot of money in the process. So it's just, doing the basics over and over again, testing the new stuff, albeit limited, and just always protecting your profits by always focusing on what you know to work.
It's all great advice. It's interesting because we talk about that. It's like a shiny object syndrome. And like you said, there's the latest and greatest out there. Sellers want to go. They want to chase that. That's what I need to be successful. I've got to get off platform. And it's like, whoa, wait a minute. Did you even do the homework to optimize what you had in hand? And are you sure that that wasn't running to the best of its ability? I think it's important advice. It's a nice kind of kick and say, look, don't run away to something else until you actually know that what you're doing is the best it possibly could be. I think it's really good, timeless advice. I guess, on that subject.
And I think if I could.
Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, I was just going to say, it's one thing I could add as well. And I think this is really important, especially for newer sellers and sort of, growing and ambitious sellers and brands, is that, PPC is a long game. And that's really important to bear in mind. And so when we work with a new client, one of the first things we talk about is sort of what is the 12-month goal. And then we break that down into 90-day cycles, because we need to be testing stuff all the time. As I said, in a limited capacity, but to get results and to do that, it can take time. And so, having realistic expectations, and this is certainly something that we've learned as a business, in trying to make sure that we manage the expectations of our clients and customers as well as we can, because, PPC isn't a quick fix. You'll always kind of see and hear about the latest hack or the latest ninja trick. They all tend to be very short-term fixes. Some of them aren't always white hats. And sure, you might get a little spike in sales, but they rarely kind of generate long-term sales, long-term growth. And so I think what's really important is to bear in mind that Amazon PPC isn't a silver bullet. It won't fix a failing FBA business. And sometimes, again, if you have poor quality product ratings, right, and certainly conversion really takes a hit on a product with 4 stars or less, putting more eyeballs onto your listing, driving more traffic won't fix that. There's a fundamental problem there that needs to be addressed. You address that first, and then again, you focus on the traffic. So it is just really important to bear in mind that, PPC is a long-term play, but is absolutely the most sustainable way to grow your business over time. But you have to have, a longer timeline in place to kind of see results. And, I think once you also kind of understand that PPC is an investment, not a cost, that you have to test stuff. Some stuff will work, some stuff won't. But over time, it will move the needle on your business, you'll have a much better relationship with PPC in general, I think, and a more realistic expectation of, how you can grow your business.
Yeah, I think what you said about don't get caught up in the short-term fixes, or, there's a lot of people out there trying to sell short-term fixes, and you need to be aware of that. There is no short-term fix. You do need to be thinking long-term. And if someone's coming out with the latest and greatest, I'm going to fix your PPC with this one move, like, just be wary. We know there's a lot of that in this space. I think we talk about that a lot on this podcast, but I'm always trying to tell people, like, yeah, watch out for the gurus and the scammers. We've talked a ton about all the different strategies to use PPC to grow your business, to create $1 million brand. I was wondering, do you have real world examples of how you've witnessed ads to have an impact on a business and you've watched that ROI in action and grow revenue for a company?
Yeah, absolutely. And we've seen it with businesses of different sizes as well. So, to kind of couple of examples, more recent examples kind of stand out. So one is an awesome toys and games brand that we're working with, great quality products, awesome reviews. And within the space of about 12 weeks, we were able to double PPC sales from about $13,000 to actually a little over to $28,000, within the first 12 weeks. And also to sort of ensure that those sales were also, profitable as well, focusing on the bottom line. And, a huge part of that was, again, just a brand that had great products, but was invisible because just wasn't utilizing all the options available within Amazon advertising. So that's kind of one example at kind of one end of the spectrum. But then, over the course of a year, we worked with another brand that was in the musical instruments category. And again, the sponsored products targeting options, and particularly the product options, was huge in driving visibility and driving additional sales. And we only just got started with sponsored brands before, this brand was tapped on the shoulder for an acquisition. And over the course of that year, profit increased by 261%. We had a super optimized bid strategy that kind of focused on profitable keywords, with the backdrop then of putting those profitable keywords, exposing those keywords to as big an audience as possible. And this particular brand owner, was able to exit for 7 figures. And, the only difference to the campaigns was targeting options. And then, as I said, just starting to move into sponsored brands. It was just, a case where the PPC was just very underutilized. The brand had been around for a while, so we're sitting on a ton of great data, but the bids and the keywords and the data just wasn't optimized. And, we were able to extract that data and find out very quickly what was working. And with an increase in budget, and that's the important thing as well, like to grow sales, you need to, increase your budget as well. The key is to make sure that your bids are optimized so that you're not losing money, you're making money. And then that budget, that's when you start to get a return on your ad dollars. And so those are just a couple of examples for the different sort of size of businesses that we work with. But yeah, we've had about 27% of our clients exit within 12 months of working with us. And well, we're sorry to see them go. In some respects, that's a great way for them to exit as well. And PPC can be the biggest driver there. It can drive an awful lot of value into those businesses that secure them a higher multiple because, they have optimized campaigns. And with that comes a lot of value, which is great. So, when we see that happen, that makes it all worthwhile.
And I think that ties back to your earlier point of your PPC needs to be that long-term strategy. And this is, again, where people might get a little bit disjointed and think about, okay, this chapter of my Amazon business is just me selling these products and, I'll do this for a couple of years, but then they're not connecting with how PPC could be optimizing the brand so much that it is going to be the driver that gives them a business that would make an incredible asset to exit to, let's say a large FBA aggregator, for example. And so you need to be thinking and looking down the road and realizing that PPC can be the right weapon to have in your arsenal to transform your business into a multi-million-dollar exit, for example.
Yeah, absolutely. And, the great thing about that, the examples I quoted, one of those brands we're still working with and is now working towards an exit next quarter. And the other one, as I said, has already exited. And so we see different results in different timeframes. But you're absolutely right. And for us, actually, when we talk to our clients, because every 30 days we have a Zoom call. So we kind of, review progress and we review the strategy and what's working and what needs tweaking. But, if you then have an exit conversation, and we sort of work with a couple of brokers that we refer our clients to, and that 12-month time window is perfect. And so for us, if all of a sudden now we're going from, okay, we're moving out of a brand awareness strategy to an exit strategy, we can adapt how we manage those campaigns accordingly. So now we're maybe not optimizing for visibility and maximum sales, but, now we're managing for profit. And so that's the great thing about Amazon PPC, is that it can be used as a tool to implement your business goals. That's really what it's there for. That is its superpower. And so an exit strategy, that's a great PPC strategy to work with.
I love that. I love that perspective. Again, I think it goes back to people going, these are the ads that I do to sell my products. And it's like, no, it's more than that. It's about meeting the business goals, like you're saying. I know that you're working, quite deeply with brands and just kind of a range of their own goals and their own vision of what it is that they would like to achieve with their Amazon business. I guess, one thing came to mind. I know that you and I had talked about this offline, and I told you this story that I remember. This was like a couple of years ago when I got hired at Empire Flippers. I was really struck by, I think it was a seller interview that I had, and the seller called in and was talking about how they had picked up an Amazon business from an old woman who was, running the business. She wasn't quite technical, and somebody had given her really awful PPC advice. And even though she had a good business going, she was just losing money left and right by following, it was probably a bad guru or something like that. And it always stuck with me because it made me so angry that this is a very innocent person who got trapped in the good advice, and there was no one there to help sort of bring the business out of a really bad place. And, this guy ended up stepping in and probably getting a really good asset, kind of maybe at her expense. I think he was a good guy. He was not trying to scam her over or anything. And so we've talked a little bit about, the mistakes and just the ultimate money pit, like you had mentioned earlier. You guys work on this idea of misspend prevention at Sponsor Profit, and I thought that was really interesting. So kind of in light of that example, why does a focus on misspending on ads sometimes matter even more than the winning ad strategy? And again, that might feel obvious, especially in light of the story I just told, but I'd love to get your perspective.
Yeah, so our misspend prevention method was really born out of a couple of things. Again, based on shared with you earlier about, sort of 50% of sellers, misspending at least 20% of their ad budget every single month. And it's a very easy thing to do. And so our misspend prevention method, there's a number of things that we do. It's not sort of just one thing, and then it's something that we do month in, month out. So again, it's not a one and done type strategy. And it's not that it matters more than a winning ad strategy. I think it's part of a winning ad strategy because, what we also aren't talking about is, well, we'll just cut spend, or we'll just cut all the waste and then kind of almost keep the business sort of stagnant, right? It's not losing money, but it's also not kind of growing. So it's not just focusing on reducing waste at the expense of growth. But the misspend prevention method sort of, consists of a number of things. We have what we call a deduplication tool. So basically, you can waste an awful lot of money by not only duplicating keywords in your campaigns, but also something that we call filler words. So in, on, those kind of words, you can spend and waste rather an awful lot of money on those. And interestingly enough, and this would be a conversation for another podcast because it's quite contentious, but we grow and scale PPC campaigns on singular keywords. We don't bid on plurals. You can bid on plurals, and Amazon will let you bid on plurals, and you'll pay for every click you get on a plural, but it actually doesn't take away from your sales. And we've proven this. We've been in business over 3 years now, and we've tested and perfected this. So deduplication is one thing that we kind of build into this method. And so, as I said, that's duplicated keywords, filler words, plural words. Another thing is negative keywords. right out the gate. So before we start driving ads, again, when we sort of take on a new client, or if we have a client who's launching a new product, we'll actually build out negative keywords as well as positive keywords prior to launching. And the negative keywords I'm referring to is, we call it our single word negative phrase strategy. It's a bit of a mouthful, but essentially, let's say, for example, you sell a blue silicone spatula. What we'll do is we will add red as a single word, as a negative phrase, so that ads won't appear for, let's say, red silicone spatulas, right? Because it's totally irrelevant. We can build that in from the get-go. The same for something, say, like wooden. We don't want our ads to show for wooden spatulas because we're selling a silicone spatula. So if you think of a single word, but then you put it in a phrase match, what it means is that any phrase containing red or containing wood or wooden, our ads won't show. That saves a tremendous amount of waste. We've calculated on product launches, at least, that reduces waste by 30 to 53%, which during a product launch, when you're trying to get visibility and you're trying to rank, that makes a big difference. So those are just a couple of strategies we use in our misspend prevention method that we then rinse and repeat month in, month out to make sure we minimize that waste as much as possible, so we can make sure as much of our budget is on the stuff that's working. I hope that wasn't too technical.
No, I find that so interesting because I haven't really heard a lot on the waste perspective and the fact that you could be showing up for all these different things that you just shouldn't be showing up for. You're paying for it. You should not be showing up for that and killing your chances, especially during a product launch like you mentioned. I feel like...
Yeah, and...
Go ahead. Yeah,
sorry, I was just going to add. Yeah, sorry, Sarah. I was just going to add. And the key thing there, the key caveat is, negative keywords. It's not like it's, a well-kept secret. It's a well-known strategy and it absolutely should be used. But, the difference for us is, as I said, we use that at the very beginning. To waste ad spend means you need to spend it first, right? And so what we kind of do is, we kind of turn that on its head, and by making sure the keyword research we do is on point before we even start is, we'd rather start small and scale up in terms of keywords. And as I said, build out, so what we want to do is find super relevant positive keywords, but then we also want to find, super irrelevant negative keywords right from the get-go, and then start small and scale up, rather than let's throw mud at a wall. Let's see what works. Let's see what doesn't. Oh, this stuff over here doesn't work. It spent all this money. Okay, now we can negative these keywords. You're reducing that waste after it's been wasted. So we try and nip that in the bud as much as we can, which is why we kind of start out with that single word negative phrase to kind of prevent that from even happening. And so that's the key. It's building out those negative keywords before you start advertising as opposed to after.
Oh, yeah. Okay, so you might be answering my next question. And granted, I'm trying to avoid making you repeat too much of what you said because you've just given too many golden nuggets, right? Like I almost feel bad asking you things to just killing it, right? But I do want to make sure that we don't miss this topic because it's important. And you have spoken about it throughout the podcast, but let's say someone's scrolling through and they get fixated on this. I want to address the common mistakes that FBA sellers make when using PPC. And even if it was at a high level, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 or whatever, what are those common things that they're doing wrong?
I think probably too much with too little. So what I mean by that is too many keywords in a campaign with too little budget. And so, again, if you kind of boil down PPC to its basic components, it's data, right? It's keywords and it's bids. And so if you have a ton of keywords in a campaign with a teeny tiny budget, you're spreading your ad dollars really, really thin. So you're not going to get shown for a lot of those keywords. So we can't test them. We can't see if they're good keywords or if they're bad keywords. And you're going to run out of budget really quickly. Yeah, you're going to get a few clicks. Your budget's done for 24 hours and then you just become invisible. So I think, certainly trying to do too much with too little, so for us it starts small and scale up rather than start bid and scale down. And these are just headlines. I think the wrong keywords, it's very easy to get married to your keywords. Your product is a silicone spatula, therefore you must maybe bid on silicon spatula. Well, if that's a really expensive, high traffic keyword, it's a browsing keyword, it's quite broad, sometimes you're better off not bidding on that, certainly as let's say an exact, but finding lower cost, less competitive variations of that, whether it's a phrase or a broad, in order to get more bang for your ad dollars. And so there is a difference between browsing keywords and buying keywords. And buying keywords are those super relevant, longer tail keywords that you can find in your search term reports that are proven to drive sales. So, your search term report is your friend. That's really, really important. And so you always want to go off the data and what Amazon is telling you are your keywords, rather than sort of, as we say, being married to your keywords, and no matter what, bidding for keywords that either you can't afford or that aren't relevant just because maybe that they're what your product is called. So I think keywords is key. Too many or having the wrong keywords. And yeah, as I said, I think probably, again, it comes back to your product listing. That is the biggest mistake, is throwing up a listing or not having a compelling offer, maybe not, let's say, for example, you've got a product and it's twice the price of your competitors, but only has 10% of the reviews. That's going to be a really hard sell for you. And so it's a mistake to try and run ads thinking that you can compete with those top sellers. Again, if your product listing just isn't compelling enough, or if it just doesn't stack up. So again, it comes back to not even necessarily what are your biggest PPC mistakes. Always come back to your product listing, always come back to your product and the quality of that. I can't stress that enough.
Oh, it's fantastic. I love that you just brought all of that full circle. It does really give a good in-depth look at everything that can go wrong, yet everything that could go right on the other side of it. I did want to shift gears a little bit here because we'll be kind of wrapping this up, but just a few personal questions for you. You spend your day helping other people scale their businesses. You're basically helping them unlock amazing growth opportunities. But I was wondering, do you ever miss being on Amazon yourself and selling? Is there nostalgia for those days?
Yes and no. It's really exciting to build a brand. And look, the great opportunity with Amazon is, folks are getting the opportunity to build something from nothing. That's amazing. And that is one of the upsides to being in the digital age, right? There's a lot of downsides too, but that's definitely an upside. So yeah, I think sort of creating something from scratch like that, particularly because it's physical products, right? It's a tangible thing. Like, we've built a business and I'm super proud of that. And that's kind of being from scratch. But I think there's something about physical products. I think about, building a brand, creating something from nothing, tangible products that solve people's problems or make people's lives better or whatever it is, I think is hugely, hugely satisfying and a major accomplishment. So yeah, I think sort of seeing that start from an idea, whether it was from a course or whether it was from a YouTube video, and then kind of bringing that into existence, I think is really exciting. So yeah, I do miss it from that perspective for sure. And, I think as well, it's a bit of a double-edged sword, but, you have to wear a lot of different hats in a physical products business. And that variety also kind of really keeps you on your toes. And so, yeah, certainly, I do have moments where, especially when, we get to work with great brands and we just think, oh my God, that's like really, really awesome. And you see that growth and you see their profile grow and increase and you see the impact that it's having on them and their families. Yeah, for sure. I can feel like that sometimes.
No, I totally get that. It's not something that we always get to ask people when they transition from, let's say, one side of Amazon to the other. So I like hearing your perspective there and understanding that there are good things on both sides of the fence. But I think another benefit of probably what you're doing is you basically get to peek behind the curtain of all these Amazon FBA businesses, like you said. Has this given you any insights into emerging trends within the FBA industry and maybe an idea of where the industry is headed?
I think, again, at the risk of repeating myself, I think it's, we are now in a brand building age. It's not about selling stuff. So I think, the biggest opportunities are going to be for folks who want to build a brand, with a range of complementary products that they can cross-sell because, the Amazon advertising platform is changing and moving in that direction also, as I mentioned, with sponsored brands and sort of being able to sell complementary products. So, it's now about building a brand. And again, it's really, really brought into focus, I think, that it's all about customer experience, and you have to be obsessive about having a compliant review strategy, having fantastic customer service, having good quality and great quality products. These are all really, really key ingredients, I think, to having success on Amazon. And I think if you have that and you do that and you think about, building a brand, building a business, and not just selling quote unquote stuff, Amazon is the place to be, without a doubt.
Excellent. It's tough to sum up everything you brought here today. There's just been so much depth and richness. I really appreciate your take on PPC and bringing it to life. Typically, we would like to wrap up this podcast with just a couple rapid fire questions, if you're cool with that. If so, we can get into those.
Okay. I don't think I have any choice, so fire away.
Technically, you have a choice, but no, I'm just kidding. They should be fun. So I'm curious, what are the best hidden growth opportunities within PPC?
Again, your product listing, CPR, conversion, pricing, reviews.
Awesome. And what tools or resources can help FBA sellers scale their PPC campaigns?
Of course, aside from some that we have and offer sellers, there's number one, the Learning Console. So if folks aren't aware, Amazon advertising now have an amazing learning console where you can, do kind of online, like kind of boot camps and mini courses on how to advertise. It's absolutely tremendous. So number one, go there, you'll find it and be able to access it from the Seller Central account. And look, in terms of tools, if you are brand registered, you need to check out Brand Analytics. There's a couple of tools on there which are amazing. For Brand Analytics, there's something called Search Frequency Rank. So that's data that shows you how often a search term is searched for. It's got over 2 million. The last time I looked, 2 million rows of search terms. And it will tell you what are the highest volume search terms and ASINs on Amazon right now. And interesting fact, yesterday it was a quote unquote Squid Game costume.
Yeah, actually, I think I saw something about that on Amazon, right? Yeah, it was like trending on Amazon and they didn't know what to do about it.
Yeah. So it's all about, obviously at the time we're recording this we'll be coming up to Halloween. But yeah, so Brand Analytics for Search Frequency Rank, because that'll, as I said, show the highest, not yours, the highest volume search terms. And then also Brand Dashboard. There's something in there called a Search Terms Optimizer. And these will show you basically low value terms that you are already ranking for. So you can replace those with more search terms that you can then show and rank for. And, we've grown some, search terms from like 700 to over 6,000 for some of our accounts. So yeah, Brand Analytics and Brand Dashboard, if you're brand registered, it's straight from the horse's mouth. It's all Amazon data. It's updated. I don't know how regularly, but it will be more than daily even. Absolutely incredible tools that are at your fingertips if you know where to find it.
Awesome. That's excellent advice. Well, final question. What has been your funniest moment working in the Amazon space?
Well, there's been lots of funny moments. They typically tend to involve live events, which is why I'm really excited that live events are coming back. I'm not sure that I can share all of them. A lot of them happen in Vegas. And as we know, what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas.
Absolutely.
But, I do remember I met my now 2 business partners before we were business partners when we were sellers at an event, and we ended up one night at a bowling alley. I'm not quite sure how we ended up in a bar afterwards, but I'm not great at 10-pin bowling. And so I somehow managed to throw the ball behind me instead of front of me. And yeah, I nearly took out Daryl. So a sponsor profit didn't, almost didn't come into being because I almost took out one of my partners with a bowling ball a few years ago. I think probably aided by a couple of beers. So I thought it was funny. It was a close shave for him. Yeah. No Amazon sellers were injured in making of that sketch. So yeah.
That's so awesome. You almost didn't have the business that you have today because you took them out with a bowling ball. That's incredible. I mean, You're not alone. Like, there has to be some data around how many people have gotten injured at bowling alleys for that same reason. I'm horrific at bowling, and it's kind of why I don't think I've bowled in a super long time, because that's me. But I wouldn't have been so lucky. I would have taken some people out. They would have gone in the hospital. I would have felt terrible. It would have been a whole thing. So I'm extremely happy that no one got hurt and that you landed where you are today in the business.
Me too.
It's awesome. Well,
Me too.
I love it. This has been a ton of fun, Laura. It's been great to have you on and learn so much more about you. I was wondering, if anyone wants to connect with you, reach out to you, see what you're up to, what's the best place for them to connect with you?
Yeah, absolutely. Probably the easiest is to go to our website, so www.sponsoredprofit.com. You can schedule a call. We also have a ton of free resources you can use and access. So again, sponsoredprofit.com/checklist. I've kind of banged on and beat the drum about, having an ad-ready product listing, how important that is. So that's sponsoredprofit.com/checklist. I think it's a 40-point checklist to help sellers sort of ensure that they have ad-ready product listings to get the most out of their advertising. So yeah, go to the website to schedule a call or go to the website and get some handy resources.
Excellent. Awesome. Well, again, this has been great. It's been really fun to talk about a subject that I get to hear about some on the show, but I think we just went even deeper. I feel like I've got a different perspective on PPC. So personally, thank you for opening up my eyes a little bit. And I'm looking forward to seeing how our audience reacts and how this impacts them. I'm sure it's going to be really valuable. So thank you again.
Thank you for the opportunity. And I'm very humbled by the fact that you put fun and PPC in the same sentence. So that's a win. Thank you, Sarah.
Awesome. Thank you. Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in. I hope you walked away today with a bit of new insight that'll help you in your digital entrepreneurship journey. If you enjoyed the episode and you'd like to help support the podcast, please share it with others, post about it on social media, or leave a rating and a review. To learn more about businesses available for sale at Empire Flippers, click the link in the description or visit empireflippers.com/marketplace. Thanks again, and I'll see you next time.